Hi, this is Mark Sarazano from HowToTunePianos.com and the International Piano Technician School. Today, I'd like to present to you 8 different temperament sequences using the temperament cards I've produced and describe the pros and cons of each based on accuracy and precision. Now, accuracy and precision are sometimes confused, but I'd like to explain to you exactly what they are. Accuracy is the correctness of a pitch setting, where precision is the ability to reproduce that exact pitch multiple times. So you can have a very precise setting, but if it's not the correct setting, then it's not going to be very helpful. You can have an accurate pitch setting, but if the average is correct, but the spread or precision is bad, then any one setting of the pitch may be incorrect because the spread is so wide, it's not a precise setting. So let's start with the first temperament sequence that is listed in the temperament cards, the perfect fourth, perfect fifth sequence. This is a very simple sequence. You just go through the cycle of fourths or fifths, setting each fourth wide about 1 beat per second, setting each fifth narrow about 3 beats in 5 seconds. The problem is this has a very low accuracy and precision because of the incorrect criteria. Setting a fourth wide by 1 beat per second is not accurate because the fourths actually increase in speed throughout the temperament sequence, starting with F3, B flat 3, about 0.8 beats per second. That increases to C4, F4 at 1.2 beats per second. Now you might say, well, is that such a big deal? Well, it is, because it's going to produce errors that you will have to correct later on. The precision problem comes in the ability to even set an interval wide by 1 beat per second. At 1 beat per second, our ear is less capable of hearing differences. This has been proven through a study that I did on beat speed difference sensitivity. The other problem is that once you make an error, that error will be copied to the next note because the perfect fourth, perfect fifth sequence is one long string of tuning one note based on the previous note that's already been tuned. But it is a very simple and often the first sequence that people will learn when they're starting out using a traditional approach. Now, the second progression in the temperament cards is the perfect fourth and perfect fifth that just adds a white anchor. The white anchor is simply the 5 notes F, G, A, C, and D that are tuned as fourths and fifths, starting at A, ending at F. What we do is we hope to end with the FA being about 7 beats per second. Now, 7 beats per second is not accurate because some pianos need more, some need less, but it is a good way to create a landmark along the way so that you know if you made a big error in any of those fourths or fifths from A3 to F3. The next sequence in the list is the one that I created years and years ago. There are errors in this one as well. We assume that the wide 4/2 is the best. This is not always the best size. However, this sequence does use the contiguous major thirds, or the skeleton, to start the major third progression. It's a good step towards having progressive beat rates from FA to C sharp F. It also uses the fourths and fifths, but also checks the major third progression. This is better, but it uses only one side checks. For example, tuning the B flat, it's checking A C sharp and B flat D, making sure that we have a difference in speed. For example, that the B flat D is faster than the A C sharp. But how much faster? We don't know. It's just a guess. The next sequence is the Potter sequence. This one does not use the skeleton, but does use some beat speed windows, which are very precise. This is where you tune a note so that it produces an interval beat speed that is between a slow and fast beat speed that has already been tuned. It's very precise if the ears are used correctly. More on that later. As with almost all sequences, this one also has some vague instructions to use a bunch of tests like the ladder of fourths, fifths, and thirds. This is not efficient. It results in a lot of refining at the end of tuning the temperament. The next one is the Diffie sequence. Uses a lot of similar fourths and fifths tests. It also describes tuning some fourths less than 1 beat per second wide. Again, not precise based on what I mentioned before, that with the ear's ability to even hear the difference between 1 and a half, for example. It does use some beat speed windows, which is good. It also uses the inside-outside major third, major sixth test. This is a quality of equal temperament where inside third is the same as the outside sixth, for example, GB and FD. It's not very helpful to test a sequence with these intervals because if it doesn't fit, the problem could be one of 4 different notes. It could be the F, G, B, or D. The next sequence is the Bremer equal beating Victorian temperament. This is easy to do because a lot of pure instructions are given, but it requires a lot of retuning. It's not as efficient. The Sanderson temperament has instructions for a half beat per second perfect fourth and 1.5 beats per second octaves. This is hard to set for some people. It's not as precise as I mentioned before because of these slow beat rates. It has a very nice discussion on how to set the skeleton, and it also uses more beat speed windows, which can be very precise. The Goal Ape sequence, which is the one that I use now, it measures the inharmonicity of the F and A octaves at the beginning to determine which of 3 different sequences to use to tune the rest of the notes. This is very accurate. It has a very specific description on how to tune the skeleton, and very early on tunes only with beat speed windows, always setting pitches between 2 other already tuned intervals. This can be very accurate, and it reduces cumulative error greatly and often breaks the thread so that error is not transferred. The super benefit of this is that the accuracy is so high when you're setting each note. If an interval is found to be wrong, you just check each note the way it was originally tuned, looking for permission to change the note so that you can fix both problems. The secret is to use the brain to tell the ear what to hear. The ear is not very good at setting beat rates, so we have to use the brain to tell the ear what to hear. Because as I've found and written about in my article, My Stupid Ears, asking the ear to hear an error. And the ear is so much better at hearing things that are wrong rather than hearing what's right. And this gives you the permission you need to correct the note. Now, the problem with this sequence is that it uses surrogate major thirds. That is, intervals that beat the same as the major third, using the major third major sixth equality and the inharmonicity determined at the beginning of the sequence. The problem is the major third major sixth equality is not equal. There's a 2% error. But we can't hear less than 3 to 5%, so that's fine. The problem with the Goal Ape system is it continues to use this equality assumption up to the point where at G sharp 3, C4, and E4, this error can be up to 6% flat. Now we can hear that error. It results in a lot of fourths and fifths not sounding very good. The solution, again, is to use the brain to tell the ear what to hear. The solution is to allow the ear permission to raise these notes, even if the ear says these notes agree with their criteria. So when, for example, E4, if you test it the way it was originally tuned, and the test says there's nothing wrong with the E4, that gives you permission to raise it a tiny bit, and this would fix the problem of the AE being too narrow, for example. The final criteria is that all the fourths and fifths sound acceptable. None are ugly. This sequence often produces progressive beat rates with only one pass, no refinement needed after the last note is tuned. This is due to much of the self-correcting during the sequence. Most other sequences require you to be finished before you can refine, due to poor accuracy and poor precision that we've already discussed using the fourths and fifths. And when refining, you have to do it with multiple tests, not the single test that the Goal Ape system uses to tune each note, which makes the Goal Ape system much more efficient. If you would like a copy of these interval cards, you can go to my store. I'll put the link somewhere on this page, and you can just purchase them. And all of the temperament sequences that we've discussed are located right here in this set right here, which is 18 cards attached together with this ring. You can just take it with you. They're very portable. And also at the back, it has a lot of discussions of how to use the temperaments, what to listen for, and also contact information for a lot of the people that have added these temperament sequences to the set. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that.